Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Let's get right into this because I want to talk to you guys about two things. The first is the difference between science and models. I posted this on Facebook the other day. So, there is a difference between science and models. Science says if you do this, you do A, then this will happen. If you do B, this will happen. Models is data mining, meaning they look into things and they say, well, we've seen the temperature increase over this time, and temperature increases over this time, or temperature changes over this time, which makes us speculate that if we don't do A, then this could happen. If we don't do B, this could happen. If we do A, this could happen. If we do B, this could happen. That's not science. That's data mining. So when you hear people come out and talk about how, we've got to do something or our world is going to collapse and the California is going to go into the ocean and this and that is going to happen. We're going to burn up everything. When you hear that, that is a speculation based on certain data that they have taken. I remember watching a video where this guy was talking about how Dr. Judy Mikovits, who has challenged Fauci, and in what's called the pandemic video, how she's cherry picking. Well, that's what data mining is and models are. It's cherry picking. You're finding stuff that presents your point of view as the one that will happen, but you don't actually have verifiable evidence that it will happen. So like telling you to cut down the carbon emissions will save the planet, or saying that, the whole world is going to be underwater if we don't stop the melting of the polar ice caps, all this kind of stuff like that. I don't know, depending on the age of the person, you could remember back to the time, and it's been decades at this point, this has been happening, where scientists back in the 90s, I think, were saying this, as I recall, were saying that California was going to slip into the ocean. I'm still waiting for California to slip into the ocean. There were people back in the 90s who were saying, if Hawaii had too many people on it, if it was overpopulated, they were afraid it would tip over and go upside down. I mean, these are these considerations based on population factors and all kinds of things that have no real basis of evidence. It's a speculation. I mean, they've got these little things they could go and look at and say, well, this suggests that this could happen, but that's not science. I mean, can you imagine a person who's going to be an astronaut getting ready to go up in the shuttle, and they're like, okay, you sure this is going to work? Well, it looks to us like if we do this, then this will work. Well, what's the other possibility? You could explode, die. You think that people are going to go up in a shuttle based on, a model of what could happen? They're going to go on something that's been tested and proven it's going to happen. Otherwise, they know they will die. Rocket scientists just don't go, hey, so listen, I think if we put, this kind of fuel into here, that we'll get this result. I don't know why that thing is doing that. My computer's acting like a jerk. Quiet. It'll be quiet until it decides not to be quiet anymore. So my bottom line is that you cannot trust this concept of models. People are working off these models when it comes to this COVID-19, and it's just a model, meaning they're speculating that if it gets out and you don't contain it, that this many people are going to die. That's data mining based on an idea. It's not science. And they keep having to update the model, and then they give credit to the fact that there's been mitigation, but the mitigation hasn't changed anything, because if you go and look, also, before I go into that, also, the whole concept of the shutdown in the United States and in other countries has been to flatten the curve, okay? Flattening the curve never meant stopping the virus. It meant slowing it down. So if it was supposed to slow it down, it didn't mean that it was supposed to be preventing 2.2 million people from dying. It meant it was supposed to be slowing down how quickly they died. Yet now we're in this state where they've gone from 2.2 to 1 to 250,000 to 140 to 60, back up to 80, back up to 100,000. They keep changing the goalpost because they really don't know what's going to happen. They're making speculations of what's going to happen. And people are getting tired of living off of speculation. This is why climate change and things like that are just insane. Yes, we can be better stewards of our planet and not pollute any more than we have to. But remember, everything that's on this earth came from this earth. Okay? It's not like we went and got, solo cups from Saturn and brought them in. It's not like, that, Mars bars and Snickers and all that actually came from the Milky Way. Anything that's on this planet is of this planet. And in some way, it goes back into the planet. The way you put them together and the chemical reactions of them can impact areas. It's true. And we can find smarter ways of disposing of garbage and such. But we've been disposing of garbage since the beginning of time. If it wasn't us, it was the dinosaurs. If it wasn't, were they worried about pollution back in the days of Jesus and Jonah? Were they like, Jonah, if you drop that banana peel in the ocean, it's gonna damage our oceans. If you do this and you could damage the ocean, Jonah, you really need to think about the oceans. Because we've been disposing of garbage and such since the beginning of time. And once again, everything on this planet came from this planet. Unless you know something I don't. Unless you're aware of like a meteor that's been used for something, or, you're one of those guys who says that there's UFOs, which I'm not doubting that there's necessarily UFOs. Let me put it this way. I hope there's smarter signs of intelligence in this universe other than us, because we're not cutting it. I hope we're not the symbol of intelligence in the universe. Because with all the garbage we fall for that's fed to us, we sure better not be, or the universe is in greater risk. So the models are wrong when it comes to the COVID thing, for example, because look at Sweden. They did very baseline mitigation, and they've gotten through it pretty much the same as in comparison to like states like Michigan and such, who did very serious lockdowns. They're speculating that COVID-19 will come back in the fall. They don't know it. They're saying they think it will come back in the beginning of fall. See, that's a model, and models are designed to scare people. It's also like they give you busy work, with this thing like the masks and the gloves and all that. In addition to it being a scare tactic because they can't prove that hospitals are overrun, there's already videos that have come out showing how they're trying to make it look like hospitals are busier than they are. They're lining up their own staff to represent people who are coming for treatment who don't need any treatment. So don't believe that, they know for sure that COVID is coming back in the fall, because they don't know that. It's pure speculation. And the masks and the gloves and the social distancing, that's like busy work. It's kind of like what happened back in the 50s. Remember the nuclear missile crisis and all that, the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 50s? If you ever look back on it, there were these videos that were going along around for kids and even adults, and what it was, this thing was called duck and cover, as though ducking and cover was going to save you from a nuclear disaster. I almost said it like Bush. Nuclear. It's a nuclear reaction. Very similar to a nougat reaction. It's just there's no Snickers involved. A nuclear. No, but they thought it was. They told this to kids and people to make them think they were going to survive a nuclear reaction. For crying out loud, do you know what? Do you remember what they did to people with those shelters that they would build on their earth? Suggesting, okay, well, you go stay in this, stock it up with food, and then if the nuclear reaction hits, you could stay down there for a certain period of time, and then after it settles down, you could come back up. Well, I have news for you. If there is a nuclear war and there's a nuclear holocaust on this planet, you're going to be down there for a really, really, really long time, because the planet's not going to recover that fast. The air will be literally, or depending on the way you use the word, literally contaminated for so long you will not be able to breathe it. And here's another thing you need to worry about. How big is your oxygen tank down in there? Because if you think just being underground is going to protect you from the results of a nuclear reaction, if it's coming through at all, that you have air down there that way, you're screwed. It's all busy work that they give people, and they do it to try and see to almost see how gullible people are, And I'm not saying it's every person in government. I mean, I don't want to get into some insane thing where you're believing that everybody in government knows it. Remember that it doesn't take a lot of people to sell a theory. That's what the news does, and they're a very limited number of the population. But they sell a theory every day, all day. Russian collusion, Cuban Missile Crisis, COVID-19, all of it. They sell it every single day. They sell a theory. I think it was Anthony Robbins who said, and I agree with it 100%, the news is not designed to inform you. It's designed to startle you and to motivate you to go do things based on what they want to have done, or to support their stories in it. So, if you can get people to say, all these people are racist and they're coming to this city or this university, and you rally people to go say, we don't want racism, we hate this, we hate that. That is what they are creating, is hysteria. The news doesn't live off of, no one's going to watch a news story for very long that says, things are great, we're all doing good, there's a majority of people with jobs. We had the lowest unemployment in 5 decades 3 months ago. But the news was talking about the problems and potential, in other words, data mining models of how Trump may have been working with Ukraine to do this and Russia to do that. They're introducing these models of what they think could have happened, but not with actual evidence of what happened. In other words, not science, but models. and they push it on the American people, just like climate change, just like a number of other things, and they keep getting people who are willing to fall for it. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my microphone here. If I can. There it is. So, don't fall for these quote-unquote scientific models, because they have to say it's scientific. Otherwise, people wouldn't believe it. A model would just be like a model. Like, oh, this could happen. They have to say scientific. And the reason they say it's scientific because they have scientists who, do stuff, do these researches into trying to find out how this could happen. So, you know that there are numerous scientific studies that are done not to necessarily prove yes or no, but to prove yes. So in other words, here's a study. We want to do a study that shows how the earth could be destroyed by pollution, how climate change could occur, how this could occur, how that could occur. In other words, not saying we're going to determine if yes or if no that this will happen, but they're looking at one side of it. So be careful of models. The other thing that is still sort of in line with this models thing is the whole thing with the hydroxychloroquine and the remdesivir thing. The study of remdesivir has shown a potential decrease of 31% based on one clinical study that's been done so far. There was a similar study that was done with about 1/4 the number of participants that showed the remdesivir did not have any positive or significant impact on acting as a therapeutic for the COVID thing. So hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine have been around, from the best of what I can understand, in the area of about 70 years. As a result of it, they no longer have a patent, which means that nobody owns it, which means whoever can go out and make a drug or find a way in which to put it out there to people. They don't have to make it expensive because they're not paying, they're not, giving money to the patent holder to do it. It's just not a, it's almost like it's not trademarked to anyone, right? So like no one gets to say I own hydroxychloroquine or I own chloroquine. Remdesivir is owned. It's actually owned. It's a drug owned by Gilead Sciences, which is has given money to the NIH and the CDC, and now is suddenly in charge of the one drug that has been pushed by the FDA after one clinical trial in the United States, which showed the potential of 31% of, you can hear that buzz in the background, it's not intentional, it's a device. But it's shown in one study in the United States a potential of 31% decrease in the mortality rate of COVID-19 with 1,000 patients, approximately 1,000 patients. I think it was a little bit more. But that's not how most scientists would do a real study of a drug. You would have several clinical trials, yet they're pushing this one through. It would be different. To me, it would be different with remdesivir if they actually had done a study with 1,000 people and you saw 80% of the people in it get better. Because then you're like, okay, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence or data suggesting that this thing could help a majority of people. But that's not what they're doing. They're saying almost Just over 25% of the people who were in this study were seeing benefits, so we should push it out and get it out to the rest of the people, and they should, prescribe it. Doctors should be prescribing it. And remember, the FDA tells you what you can prescribe. They tell doctors, okay, if this condition is happening, prescribe this, which means that there's money to be made in it by the company that is lobbying to the FDA. I'm not saying the FDA in a intentional sense is trying to create a product that hurts people, but they are, in a manner of speaking, a slave to the people who keep giving them money and lobbying them for power. They get their people in positions of power, and as a result of it, then those people are almost answer to pharma than they do to their jobs within the government. That's just logic, because they're like, we got you in, don't forget who got you that chair. And if they do forget, guess what? We'll get you out of it. And all the little financial gains are not going to come back your way. That doesn't mean that the secretary or the office manager or the people who work at the FDA are in on it. That's not how it works. See, anyone who thinks that I don't believe rational thinking people, I don't think rational people think that every person in government is in on it. That is true paranoia. But reasonable consideration, critical thinking can tell you that the people at the top are in charge of it, and they're limiting the knowledge of information, the information that people have. It's control. You control the stream of information. You tie up what you can until there's no way you can tie it up anymore. Look at all these studies that have come out that have said in the past, red meat can cause you this and this and this, and then later data comes out showing that actually is not true. It's just a matter of controlling the flow of information to people. And that is what the people who are benefiting from it want. It doesn't mean it's everybody. Don't think that the lady who works at, the FDA who's answering the phone is like, oh God, they're in on, they're on to us. She's not any more informed than anyone else. Because if she is, she would have to live with that on her conscience if she knew such a thing was happening. And you'd have to suggest that she was a corrupt person. And these are people who are just aspiring to make a difference in some way, potentially. So don't think everybody's in on this scam of things. This is where Alex Jones goes a little extreme, because he just thinks all these people in government. And I don't know if he thinks everybody is, but I know he thinks there's so many of them that are in on it that he drives himself crazy. And I've spoken to Alex Jones, and it's not like a claim to fame. Back years ago, I spoke to Alex Jones, and he even said sometimes he goes extreme, and he says it's because he's scared. He's scared of what he sees happening and the things he has come to understand. And he didn't say he overreacts, but he said sometimes it's just overwhelming what he's seen. Now, this is Alex Jones 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 22, 24 years, something like that, 25 years ago. So my point with it is that remdesivir is produced by Gilead. Gilead has given money to the NIH and to the CDC, millions, and now they're overseeing the study of the one therapeutic that the FDA has now authorized to be used to treat COVID-19. And this is where you've got to understand doctors are not in on that. There are doctors who are actually debating it and saying, look, we're seeing other problems with remdesivir, but we know HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, is an effective treatment. But they made an oath, and part of that oath, in addition to doing no harm, is also, in some cases, is not trying to think outside of the box if they don't know what will happen. So there are going to be some doctors who, even if they hear people say HCQ is beneficial, they may not try it because they're like, well, look, it's not being pushed by the FDA, and I have a responsibility to make sure I don't take a chance on people that I don't know for myself if it's working. So doctors are not like, in on this thing of hurting people. Yes, doctors get kickbacks for promoting certain drugs. That does happen. It's not with every drug, but it is with some drugs. That's not deniable. There's evidence of that. But they don't all just go out of their way to hurt people. I don't think any doctor got into medicine to go, I really want to get rich and screw people. They got in genuinely thinking, I want to help people. I want to serve my community. My mom was sick. I don't want anyone else to go through that. My father was sick. I don't want anyone else to go through that. My sister died young. My brother died young. My babe, I nearly died at birth. They want to contribute back and stop some of that harm. But they're in sort of a hard position because let's say you were in a situation where you were told not to use HCQ, and there are states telling people they will take their licenses and damage their careers if they prescribe HCQ. It's actually happening in the United States. They're telling you not to use HCQ and that you'll face fines and other things if you do use it. So imagine that from a doctor's perspective. He's told, well, here's this remdesivir we're really pushing. We want you to get that out there to people. This is a therapeutic that we've seen some results with. Push that. Well, that doctor could say, well, but what about hydroxychloroquine? I've heard a lot of good things about it. You don't prescribe that, or we'll take your license. You cannot prescribe that. Remdesivir is what we're using. Well, then that doctor's in a difficult position because he has to go, okay, I hear good things about HCQ, but they're telling me remdesivir does have some effectiveness. Is this the bridge I want to die on? Meaning, do I want to sacrifice my career for something that I know I've heard works, for something that I've heard has had positive, in lieu of not using something that has been shown to have some kind of positive results, maybe not these same kind of results, but some positive results? Do I want to die on the bridge and lose my career for that? Because later on, I may be with a patient, and because of their trust of me and my knowledge of this or that, I really believe I could help save their lives. Do I want to die on this bridge when I could still do so much other good later down the line? And it's not like I'm giving something that I know is going to hurt them. I'm giving them something that is considered to be at least a partially effective therapeutic. Isn't that better than giving them nothing? So they're in a weird place. Doctors aren't, the people who keep analyzing the pandemic video, which is what it's been called, as a pandemic, they keep saying that Dr. Mikovits is saying all doctors are bad. She's not saying that at all. She never once in that video says all the doctors are in on it. She keeps talking about Redison? I can't remember his name exactly. The guy from the FDA. Echo, who's in charge of the FDA?
I'm not sure.
Echo, who is the leader of the FDA?
The Food and Drug Administration, also called FDA, was founded by Harvey Washington Wiley on June 30th, 1906.
Echo, who is the current administrator of the FDA?
This might answer your question. There aren't any May 10th, 2020 U.S. Supreme Court justices.
I guess that's Echo's way of saying she's not going to tell me. I think his name is Reddington or something to that effect. I don't want to, lie to you. But she's saying he and Fauci and Burke have something to gain from it. I don't know what Burke has to gain from it. I haven't explored into her, but Fauci's connections are becoming more obvious. And so are the head of the FDA. And so just ask questions about it. I'm not suggesting you believe everything that Dr. Mikovits says. I'm just saying that things are not always as they seem. Especially when you have media involved, and especially when you have places like YouTube and such working to actively pull down videos and material of people that they disagree with. Now, they're not going to pull down this video, and I'm not an example of that because I'm a commentator. I'm not a person with any kind of medical or scientific knowledge. I'm just making based on experience and my own critical thinking, this is what the conclusion I've come to. And you can call me wrong, you can call me stupid. I really don't care. That's part of, being free is not worrying about what other people think of you. But people like the doctors in Cook County who spoke out about it. People like Dr. Judy Mikovits. Other doctors who keep speaking out about it. They are in danger because it challenges the narrative that is trying to be sold. So they are people who need to be squashed because they want there to be this presentation that Fauci and Burke and all these guys, that everybody backs them up. That it's not a perspective that they have, but that it is the standard. And the only way to give that united front is to hide or conceal the people who disagree with it. So don't be afraid to do research. Remember, CNN, Fox, ABC, who else is out there? Media Matters, MSNBC, Vox, The Hill, Huffington Post, The Washington Times, Washington Post, New York Times, New York Daily News, all these things, they have something not in the reporter's standards necessarily. The reporters may just dislike Trump, for example. They may just dislike Obama, for example. That's biased, and that's almost just, so subjective that you have to stop worrying about the subjectivity of it and look for the value underneath it, right? You can't just go, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to them because they're Trump haters. You have to look for the value underneath it. Is there any value in what they're saying? Because everybody has some kind of a bias. There's no such thing as a completely impartial human being. If there was a majority of completely impartial human beings, we wouldn't have any of the stuff we have right now. Because everybody impartial and be like, Okay, well, it could be that way, and it could be that way. And everybody has to fight their opinions. No, it's like, you're wrong, I'm right. You're wrong, I'm right. So, excuse me. Excuse me, didn't get the cough button in time. Just remember that models are data mining. They're not science. And that everybody's not out to get you, but there are people who have proven there's plenty of evidence to follow a line of potential benefits for people within this whole thing. They're going to try and shut the country down again at some point. They're going to try and do it. Trump is trying to stop it. Good for him. They want to shut it down again. They started introducing this thing about Kurosawa disease happening to 3 kids who had been shown to have the antibodies or had been diagnosed with COVID-19. Now they're trying to attach it to an acute disorder or Kurosawa disease, suggesting that COVID-19 somehow is creating an opening for that to occur because there's 3 cases in greater New York. They're going to try and throw everything they can at this virus to make you believe that it's dangerous, more dangerous than it truly is. I want you to remember, please remember, and go do the research on it. Some of my previous episodes have done it. Go look on Google and type in NIH study on HCQ or hydroxychloroquine. Go to the actual site where they talk about it. COVID-19 is really known as SARS-CoV-2, SARS, which is severely acute respiratory syndrome, which is what the original SARS was back in 2002, 2003, which disappeared on its own before they ever found a vaccine for it. SARS-CoV-1, and this is essentially its sister virus or brother virus, depending on how you want to look at it, SARS-CoV-2. It has approximately an 80% molecular relationship to the original. And the original just dissipated on its own. The only difference between the two is the attention they've gotten. That's it. That's the biggest difference. SARS was contagious. This is contagious. This is not more contagious than that, because every time we turn around, we're seeing a higher number of people who are infected and it decreases the mortality rate. Of course, if you expose it to people who are pre-existing conditions, they're going to die. I mean, that's like saying, if you expose people to sunlight, they're going to get sunburned. Well, duh. So keep that in mind. SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, is not even an atypical coronavirus. It's a little different. And in fact, there's a treatment for it because HCQ and chloroquine being more dangerous. HCQ is like a milder form. HCQ is hydroxychloroquine, if you haven't heard me say that already. It's known as HCQ in the abbreviation because half of us can't pronounce it right. But it's shown to effectively act as not only a therapeutic but a prophylactic, which means that it prevents it from spreading. Not only does it treat it, but it prevents it from spreading, almost to the point where it makes it hard for it to be passed on to other people. They keep introducing these ideas trying to freak people out. First, if you noticed, it used to be in more recent, in the last like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they started saying, well, your dogs could get it because keep your dogs away from other dogs. Keep your dog, don't get close to your dogs. I kiss and hug my dogs all the time. My dogs kiss and hug me all the time. They go out and they sniff the ground. They're interacting with things on the ground I'm not interacting with all the time. They haven't given me anything. They're doing that to freak people out. It's like busy work. It's once again, it's back to gloves and masks and social distancing. Oh my! Don't fall for that. And this whole thing now with the Kurosawa disease, don't fall for that either. They're trying to do things to scare you. Before you decide that COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 could actually lead to a child getting Kurosawa, more than just 3 cases in the greater New York area, go find out how that's possible. Because if they say, well, it could be this or could be that, that's data mining. That's a model. That's not evidence. That's not science. That's speculation. That's like saying, I'm not going to say it because it's really more of a joke if I say it, because I was joking. I'm joking in the theory of it, but it's just not. It's not evidence. It's a model. I see so many people that are freaked out of daily life right now. And they want everybody else to be freaked out along with them because misery loves company, right? Misery loves company. Well, if I'm not happy and if I'm scared, you need to be scared right along with me. No, I really don't. I don't want to be scared. Thanks for the offer. I'm going to go over here and live. You go back and hide in your world. Because that's what they're asking, is for you to hide because they're hiding. And they keep saying, well, they're doing it for other people. Well, if you're doing it for other people, then stay hidden. You can order your groceries from a store and go and pick them up or have them delivered to you. You can wear a mask when you're interacting with people. Quiet device. She talks randomly. So, don't. Come on, quiet. It's trying to interrupt my flow here. So don't get caught into that stuff. Don't let people, if people really were that scared, they wouldn't go out to get their groceries. I don't even really believe they'd go out to get groceries. It's not that I don't think that they really know what they're doing, but in a way, subconsciously, I think they're going out there with those masks and gloves in this idea that they're saving the world. I'm wearing my mask and my gloves. I'm protecting you. You should wear your mask and gloves to protect me. You know, if you really wanted to protect yourself from something or protect others from it, stay at home. Get your groceries delivered. Stay inside. Don't go out. But that's not the way it is. They want to go out, but they want you to abide by their philosophy of wear a mask and wear gloves and socially distance from people. Even though none of that honestly is helping you. You might as well be ducking and covering. It's not helping you. Those masks aren't going to stop any significant thing from getting to you if it wants to get to you. Your eyes are still open. Stuff could still get in your eyes. You're touching those gloves on a consistent basis. They've even said, They even say it's not necessary to dispose of those masks now. That you don't need to clean them or dry them or wash them or anything like that because you don't even need to dry or clean or wash them. Hang on one second, I'll make this simple. Disconnect from Bluetooth. So they're saying that these masks, you don't even need to connect to them or see, now I even started connecting Bluetooth to the mask. They're even saying now you don't need to clean these masks or dispose of them. You continue using them. Okay, well, my question is, if those masks don't need to be disposed of, those N95s and such, why do doctors every time they leave an operating room, they put them in something to be cleaned, or they dispose of them outright and get rid of them? But because they do have the potential of creating biohazards, otherwise they wouldn't treat them the way they do. I know people are scared, but they're scared based on information that is not completely 100% solid. They're scared based on models, not based on real 100% accurate science. They're scared of data. They're scared of data mining models. Because once again, if you really felt that way, you could go and stay in your house, have people deliver your groceries. You could tell them you didn't want any contact with them. You could put your gloves on. You could go get your groceries. You could go and put them on your counter and do all that. And, disinfect them if that's how you're going to do it, or wash them down, whatever. I don't know what you think you're doing to protect your groceries. I've heard some people are using a mix of like part Clorox and part water to spray down their food and such, or their boxes or whatever. Like even a light spray, that absorbs into it, by the way. You're not going to stop that. Now, it may not be to a detrimental situation, but that's not stopping a virus in the same way. There's so many different things you can't do to stop the access to the virus. Even New York, they were saying that, was it 66 or 40% of the people who were diagnosed with COVID-19 were people who had been self-quarantining. You can't avoid the darn thing. The masks are not going to save you. The gloves aren't going to save you because there's so many other ways that virus could get to you. That social distancing isn't going to save you. All that's doing is making you scared of other people, as though there is an invisible, monster inside of them that's just waiting to just get you. It's what are you talking about? You might as well be as freaked out as Alex Jones. You might as well be just like, there are monsters, demons inside of these people walking around. And I could smell it. I could smell the evil in them. If they would just wear their masks and wear their gloves, they wouldn't endanger me. Don't they understand? I will eat your ass. What are you talking about, dude? It's just, if it wasn't so sad, it would really just be like a joke we'd be telling each other. If so many people weren't buying into it, we would all be laughing. It's kind of like one of those things you go, in 15 years, you look back and go, God, that was really dumb. I thought I was stopping something with a mask. Gloves. I was walking around looking like I was ready to operate. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the end of the United States. It is coming. I'm not going to tell you a model of when it's going to happen because I don't know that, obviously. No one knows that. It's kind of like the concept of, what the Bible says. No man will know the day or the hour of the coming. It's, it's like, it's impossible to know. It's kind of like trying to data mine the end of the world. I'm just going to talk about the end of the United States because I believe there's things we could talk about why it's coming. Not to freak people out. I just want people to think about where we're at and to understand that it's not really something you should be scared of necessarily. Things change in life. And if it gets to a place ultimately where, let's say you're a liberal, okay, and you don't like the way people in some of these primarily conservative states behave, right? You don't like it. You think they're too much about God and country or God and guns, and you don't believe that, right? And you could take someone who is conservative, who doesn't believe in multiple genders and abortion, and doesn't like that. And you don't want your kids to be raised around that and go through that. Well, that's why going into different countries could be a positive thing. Because if there's so much division between you, you don't want your child to grow up in a country where you feel they will constantly be judged or constantly be denied this or that based on your ideology. You want them to grow up in a country that has a set of standards that seem to be fairly universal, and we don't seem to have that in the United States as it exists right now. So the end of the United States is not necessarily a bad thing if you look down the road. Not if you live in the here and now and look at it, but if you look down the road, you may think, well, my children may be better off then, because they don't have to go through the same things. But we'll talk about that later. For now, have a great day.